everybody. Sorry about the little bit of a delay here. My phone is not cooperating, so I've got you guys flipped around backwards, but hopefully this will work. So Gina here today for Alicia, and I am going to be going over Serger basics with you guys. So a little backstory. I started a sewing business in 2013, and I quickly realized that in order for my machine or for my products to have like a really finished and nice look to them, I really needed to get a serger. So I was like, I can do this, no problem. I'm gonna go get a serger. I went and brought home a, I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but the Brother 1034D. It's kind of your basic serger. It works great. And then I let it sit there for an entire month because it's kind of scary to look at. There are a lot of knobs. There's 4 spools of thread. It was just a lot. I was really intimidated by it, and I finally, after looking at it for a month, I decided, you know what, I just need to dive in and learn how to use it and stop being afraid of it, or I'm never gonna sew anything at all. So that's what I did. And that really is like my biggest tip that I can give you about the serger, is to just dive in and do it, and don't be afraid to learn how to thread it and be comfortable with that. I'm in a lot of different sewing groups, and I've heard some people say that they buy 2 sergers, yes, 2, so that they never have to change the thread. I guess in theory that could work, but if your thread breaks, you're gonna need to rethread it. So I think getting over that fear and just learning how to do it and being confident with it is the best way to go about it. So I'm gonna go over just some settings and all the knobs on it and everything, and then I will go over threading it with you. And then I will also, we're gonna sew just a really easy like little cloth here so that I can show you guys how I chain off with my stitches and make sure that they're secure. There's a couple of ways to do it. I kind of use the cheater way. Usually I make clothes, and it's not a big deal to do it the way I'll show you. So anyway, what I'm gonna do is flip my phone back around so you won't see my face, but you'll see everything that I'm talking about on the serger kind of up close and personal, so it's easier for you guys to understand what's going on. So just one second here. Now when you buy your serger, usually if you buy it out of the box, I got mine off Craigslist. I found it, somebody wasn't using it, and it's worked great. But anyways, if you buy it out of the box, you will find that it comes threaded, but the thread is not attached to any spools of thread. So you basically have to thread it anyways. So I'm gonna show you here. Yes, Karen, I know. I was super terrified of it too. I really didn't, I wanted to learn it and I wanted to be able to use it, but tackling it was like, oh, it's so scary. So if you guys can see back here, I have it's called a chain, and that's kind of what the thread will do when you, when it's stitching correctly. It will make what's called a chain back here. Now, as I said before, it will come with the threads. They'll kind of just be tied and attached up here. So what you'll want to do, you can't just pull the thread out like a regular sewing machine. So what you'll do is you'll basically act like you're gonna sew, and you'll push your presser foot down and pull on the thread at the same time. Not hard, but just enough to kind of get it to start coming out. And there we go. The chain is out, and there is nothing in my machine here, except for this one. There we go. So you're gonna turn the knob here so that your, see if you guys can see this like good enough. You want your needles to be as high as they can be. And then in here you've got loopers. There is your your upper looper, which is right here, and then there is a lower looper right here. I'm wishing that I had better light in here. So let's go ahead and look at the adjustment. Megan, that's funny. Yes, I know the settings, honestly, it can be scary because I know I've messed with stuff before and then nothing worked right. It was like worse than when I touched it in the beginning, and I'm like, oh, what did I do? Like your tension, that's a big thing in your sewing machine, like your bobbin tension, that one is a little bit tricky. I think with the Serger, it's a little bit easier, just because your knobs are right here. You're not turning any screws or anything. I'm gonna take this color thread off. On the top of your machine here, you've got your left needle settings, which you can see the color of the wheel, and then there's a line right here that's the same coordinating color, so it tells you that is what it's for, and that's the stitch in your chain that you're adjusting. And this is your right needle adjustment. Yeah, some people do write the numbers on the top, like you mentioned, Rebecca, either with a Sharpie or they get like a label maker and put the numbers on there. I haven't had any trouble memorizing what order that they go in, so I didn't end up writing it on mine, but that is something super helpful if you forget like the order. So left needle, right needle, and then you have your upper looper, which is the stitches here that kind of go side to side in between all the other stitches, and then you have your lower looper, which is the stitch all the way to the right here. In the manual for the Brother 1034D, it does say that your standard settings for your machine are all going to be set on 4. I find that I have to adjust them sometimes, not by a lot, but if your upper looper stitches seem to be loose, you can adjust that a little bit, which is what I've had to do on mine. It's somewhere between like a 4 and a 5 is usually what I have to keep mine on. I probably could use a service on my machine, and then it might be back to the 4. So these are the little knobs, and you can just adjust those pretty easily. And then I am going to go ahead and lift this up a little bit and show you the top as well. You see the duct tape on my machine? So there's a telescoping thread holder here, and I don't know what happened to my machine, but it just stopped telescoping and it just falls down. So I had to duct tape it for now so that it's not all messed up. Come on, focus. Hi, Cheryl. So you have your knobs, and then you have these right here that will adjust, move your tension discs over so that you can thread it easily. There's lots of places that you want to make sure and hit when you're threading it, so I'm going to go ahead and show you that right now. And what I do, this is a little trick so that I remember, because if you forget the holder at the top here, you're in big trouble. You will have a hard time sewing. There we go. So I will set, there's 4 different holders for your thread, and as you can see, there's a little cone holder here that keeps your thread in place. So you want to make sure that you have those inside of there. So I go ahead and set all my cones on here, and then as soon as I set them on there, I go through and I add each one of them up through the top here, because as I said, if you don't do that and you try to sew, you're going to be like, what is going on? What's wrong with my machine? It's broken. And since it's the very first step, like, you just are going to have to start all over again. You have to cut your threads and rethread the whole thing. So I always do this part like first. Oh, my thread's coming out of the middle of the cone there. That's not good. And I did forget to grab my tweezers. I'm not in my sewing room right now because it's just not bright enough for you guys, so I have to go grab those really quick too. Yes, this is true, Christy. You do, depending on the thickness of the fabric and how many layers, sometimes I serge 3 and 4 layers of a really thick cotton bamboo fleece that I work with, and I do have to adjust the tension for that, adjust the settings here for that. So sorry guys, I gotta go grab those tweezers super quick because otherwise it's gonna be a bear to try and thread the front of this. So I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Oh, that's nice, Cheryl, that you found one at an estate sale. You know, honestly, what I've found that it has been really helpful in learning my serger has been YouTube. There are all kinds of videos that you can find how to thread it and just how to do all kinds of stuff. And of course, there's always Facebook groups that I know there's a specific 1034 Brother Facebook group. So if you have any questions, they're super helpful and, you know, can kind of guide you through whatever troubleshooting you have. There's some stitches that are a little bit trickier on the machine, like a rolled hem or different fancy, sorry guys, I'm trying to move this back so that you guys can actually see the threading part a little bit better. And I got another light too, so that hopefully you guys can see like in the inside of the machine there better. But yeah, YouTube has been my friend when trying to learn all this. So we're gonna start with our upper looper, which is your green right here. I always kind of move these other ones to the side. And at the top, you'll want to make sure you get it in the silver tension, and then I slide my tension disc over and then down. And if you guys can see, they're color coded. So remember I told you the wheel and then this. I know it's probably a little bit hard to see in the video here. And now my light's of course reflecting on the part that I don't want it to be reflecting on, but these lines right here are color coded. So this line right here is green and it matches the disc, which is super helpful because then you can see exactly where you need to be threading it at. So there we go. I think that's a little bit better. So we're just gonna go ahead and follow the green line. And on top of these right here, if you can see that, there's a blue dot and there's a green dot on this one. So that means since I'm doing the green, I'm only gonna go underneath this first piece. The second piece doesn't have a dot, so I'm not going to use that. And then my green arrow goes up this way, so you're kind of going to put it above or in this little loop. And then there is a arrow right here that shows you to slide it back and forth. You'll want to do that for your next looper. Sorry. Let's see here. And if my thread is kind of funky at the end, I just clip it off because it makes it easier if it's not all bent up. And then these are the fancy tweezers that are just really helpful in letting you get your thread in here. So there's a little hole in your upper looper. Let's see if I can zoom in. Right here. If you guys could see how I'm sitting with my phone and the light, you'd be laughing right now, but hopefully you guys can see it. So you'll put that through the hole and then just pull it all the way back. You want all your threads just like going all the way as far back as you can. And then the next one is going to be the one to the right of that, which is your lower looper. Again, you're gonna put it through the parts at the top, slide the tension discs over so it's easy to kind of get it in there. One thing you can do too while threading it is adjust your tension on all the dials to 0. I don't like doing that because I don't like adjusting my tension unless I have to, because I feel like it is going to mess something up. So I don't know. That's if you guys want to do that, you can. So we're going to now follow the blue line down. And then again, on these two pieces, they both have a blue dot. So you're going to go ahead and put it through both of those. And then up through this little, they're like kind of almost a hook. I don't know if you guys can see it, like a U. And then you're going to make sure that this part is slid out, which I already did. See, it goes in and then it slides out. This is kind of a little bit of a tricky part. It's, there we go. It's like this weird little square and you have to get the thread behind it. So I usually pull it between two fingers like this and slip it behind there. And then, oh, it fell out. You want your upper looper and your lower looper to be apart a little bit so that you can get the thread in this hole. The lower looper really is the kind of the trickier one out of all of them. So you're gonna put it through. Sorry, you guys can't see the holes right there. And then there's a bar right here. You want to make sure that the thread passes to the left of that bar. So that's why these tweezers are super helpful, because you have to kind of reach back here and grab it. You do need to put it in more than just a tiny bit so that there's something there to grab. There we go. So you just grab it from behind and then you'll pull that one. And of course, see, you want to make sure that this is in before you put it through there. And this, you push back and it will kind of click into place. That will hold your lower looper thread in place. And then we'll go ahead and do the needles. Now there is an option to only use one needle. So basically you would be using 3 threads. I have done that once and I just didn't like how it turned out. It didn't seem as secure. And so I've just always stuck with using the four threads, always using both my left and my right needle. Again, you can choose to not use both if you don't want. Sorry that I'm shaking the table a little bit, guys. So for your thread, I put it through the top like the other ones, and then you can see the arrows tell you to go down, up, around, and over. So we're going to do that with our right needle. And then you want to stick it back behind here, this part right here. And then you'll go ahead and thread it. And again, I just cut off the end of my threads when I'm doing this so that it's nice and clean. It's not like frayed and all over the place. And I am really surprised I can see this from how far away I am. I don't have my glasses on. I normally don't need them to sew, but I'm a little bit far away from the machine right now. And again, you want to pull that one all the way back, and you want to make sure it's kind of over to the right because your other thread is going to need to be here too. And then go ahead and grab your left needle thread. Got a loose one up here. Jeez. There we go. And slide that through the different tension discs. And this one is going to go the same exact place as the other needle. It's going to go down and up and over and then back through this. You do want to make sure those are left and right of each other, the threads behind this part right here. You don't want to get them twisted or mixed up there. And then thread this one through the needle. Oops. Sorry guys, I feel like you're being wiggled around a lot today. I know I can't stand that when I'm watching videos. It makes me feel sick, but... Okay, so if you guys can see back here, we've got all 4 threads. I try to keep them really long for right now, just to make sure that I've got everything the way that it needs to be, so it's not a big deal. You don't need to trim those or anything right now. And then, so I've had my presser foot down this whole time, because if it's up, it kind of blocks your needles right here. So I keep my presser foot down while I'm threading it, and then you're gonna wanna put it up and just kind of slide these threads as best you can underneath this little notch part right there. So they're still going backwards, but they're underneath that. And then put your presser foot down, and if you adjusted your tension wheels at this time, these ones up here, you'll want to go ahead and move them back to the settings that they're supposed to be on, like if you moved them to 0 to thread it easier, because now what you want to do is called chaining off. You want to get that serger stitch or overlock stitch started, because you need a chain, I don't know, a couple inches long before you start sewing with your fabric. So we'll go ahead and do that. And if you look behind here, the chain will just start, there it is. Oh, too fast, sorry guys. We're going for a ride today. So there is your chain. Then you can clip off like the excess ends of the thread. So we've got a nice little chain in the back. You always want to make sure, oh good, thank you Julie. I know it's always hard to like figure out what you guys can and can't see on that end. And I know it's a little like weird and dark kind of like right in here. So you always want to start with a chain and end with a chain. So with your regular sewing machine, you never want to sew off your fabric. That would be a disaster, right? Your bobbin thread and everything would get caught together and cause big knots, and you would just be in big trouble. Well, with your Serger, you always want to sew off the fabric. So that's something I kind of had to get used to when I first started using it. Like, oh, this is really different. I feel like I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing or something. So that is, yeah, that's the point of the Serger. You need to have that thread before the fabric and at the end of it. So I'll go over that in a minute. I'm going to go ahead and close this. There's a little cover there. I'm going to show you the knife real quick, and then I'll turn the machine around and show you the settings on the other side that you can adjust as well. So right in here, you have a knife. Oh, it's probably really hard to see in here, but this little lump thing right here is a knife, and I'll turn, I think I've got my knife off, there we go. So I don't know if you guys can see it going up and down in there. That is what cuts off the edge of your fabric and gives you that really nice clean edge. You, one more tip, you don't ever want to turn your wheel away from you, your hand wheel. You always want to turn it towards you. There's no back stitches in Sergers, so don't do that. And then I'll go ahead and turn this to the side here, and then we'll just go over the settings here. So first we have on the far left is your differential feed. This is how your feed dogs move together. So when you're sewing normally, you want your feed dogs to be moving at the same time to move the fabric evenly through so that it doesn't bunch it or stretch it or anything like that. So you'll want that set to 1.0, and you'll notice that these settings, they all have like a gray box around them, which is so awesome because then you don't have to remember like what the standard settings are for the machine. They kind of have them marked there for you, so there's no forgetting, which is nice. Now if you'll notice the pictures here, this one's kind of like a normal, and then this one is gathered. A nice thing about your differential feed is you can flip the switch up here. You do have to take something out inside your machine there. It's called a sewing finger, oh my gosh, I remember the name of it before I started the live video and now I'm kind of blanking, but anyways, you have to remove that and do a couple of other things. So we're not going to go into that today, but that is what this setting will do for you, which is kind of cool. I've gathered with it before, and it's really nice. It's like fast and easy, and you don't have to worry about all those other ways to gather fabric. So and then your next one here is your stitch length. So you see like this one's squished together, and then this one is like longer like that. That's pretty self-explanatory. It just adjusts how far apart those stitches are going to be lengthwise. And then this one here is going to be your stitch width. So skinny stitches, super wide stitches, and then just your standard setting. I honestly don't think I have ever messed with these two settings outside of doing a rolled hem, which is like loops around the very edge of the fabric. It's like a decorative finish or lettuce edge. I haven't messed with it otherwise. So it's not like the tension discs at the front of the machine. These aren't something that you need to adjust regularly, depending on, you know, your sewing. You should be able to kind of set these and forget them, which is nice. And then the very bottom one here is your knife, to either turn it on, which is what it is right now. That's what that picture means, like I'm going to cut your fabric. And then this one, if you push it back, will disengage the knife, and then it won't go up and down and cut your fabric. If you're sewing a corner, and you're sewing a corner like this kind of corner, you would sew down this way, and if your knife kept going, you would cut like into your fabric this way. So it's good to have the option to be able to turn it off, either if you don't want to cut your fabric at all, or in those circumstances so you don't actually cut what you're trying to sew. That would never be a good idea, right? So what I'm gonna do next is just flip the machine around again, and I will go ahead and just show you how I sew just a really simple rag. Like some people call them unpaper towels. I don't know. It's fleece or flannel. I'm sorry, flannel on one side, and then the French terry like washcloth fabric on the other. Super simple, but I'll be able to show you guys kind of how I do corners, and then also show you the chaining off part in the beginning and the end, kind of what you do with that. So I think I'm gonna put my camera back how it was in the beginning. So close your eyes really quick so I don't make you sick. Hopefully I don't push any buttons. Oh yeah, there, I turned on a light. I don't know how I did that. Whoops. Oh, one quick thing. If you guys can see me. So, thread. There are some people that buy it online and lots of different places, and honestly, I just get this from Joann's. It's Sherlock cone thread, and I have never had a problem with it. I made baby clothes for a while, to include clothes for my boys, and the threads never broke, nothing ever came undone. Like it's worked well for me. So that's what I use. And what I do is I wait until it's on sale, or no, not on sale, till there's a coupon. You know how Joann's is, you can either have something on sale or have a coupon, and you always want the coupon. That's what I do. I buy it when there's a coupon that I can use, and it's super cheap, because you do need to get either, 3 or 4 spools of it. So, and guys, seriously, like, I'm using a mirror right now to see where my phone is at. So I greatly apologize for all the moving you around today. My iPad didn't have the ability to go live like it used to, and my front microphone is broken on my phone. They replaced the screen, and I think they pinched my cable or something. I don't know, but it wasn't working, and I wanted you guys to be able to hear me, because that is kind of important. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you just how I use this real quick. And I did not even bother to cut these perfectly. Like, they're messy. And that is the beauty of the serger too, is you don't have to worry about cutting it nicely and then trimming it after you've sewn it or anything. You can just go to town and your machine will cut it for you. It'll do that work, which is so lovely. So I'm gonna go ahead and let's see here. I'm hoping you guys can see. I flipped on the light somehow and it's like blinding me. Let me see if I can turn it back off. Oh, there we go. Okay. Let's go ahead and sew up this rag really quick. Mind me, I'm just getting my foot here where I can actually reach it. I moved my machine and it was behind the table. Okay. So we're just gonna put the fabric right in here up against your edge. There are markings on this, which I'll show you in a minute because I don't want to keep moving you around, but there are markings on part of the machine that give you like your seam allowance markings, which is helpful because then you know how much you're cutting off and how, if you're using the standard settings, your thread will be 1/4 of an inch. So that tells you without cutting any fabric off, you already have a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So, and hopefully you guys can see this good. I'm gonna show you how I kind of round the corner on these rags as well. So, oh my goodness. And if you notice, I have my my chained off my tail here. I'm gonna leave that for now. I think last time I did this, I had the phone on something other than the table I was sewing on, so it didn't bounce around so much. So as you come to the corner, you're just gonna kind of slowly start turning your fabric, and it will cut it in that curve. And if it gets bunched up underneath your presser foot at all, you can just kind of lift it up and rotate the fabric a little bit, and that will get it back straight. I'm trying to like watch my phone and sew at the same time. So I'm almost back to where I started at. So what I will do is I will sew until my knife has cut off the last bit of fabric and also the tail. And then from there, I'm gonna flip my fabric over and sew back the way I came from. So I'll show you here. Here we go. So I've cut off the my little tail here. That's gone now. I'm gonna go over here and flip my knife off like I was showing you guys. So a couple more stitches. And then I'm gonna kind of sew off of the fabric. So I'm gonna pull the project kind of right towards my phone so that it's off. The thread can't be on the fabric at all. You're gonna lift your foot up and you're gonna take it and flip it. I didn't quite sew it far enough, hold on. You're gonna take it and flip the fabric over. and it will lay flat once you get it loose because the stitches just flip on their own and turn over. And then you'll slide it right back under and sew. I sew, I don't know, maybe a 1/2 inch again, and then I sew off of the fabric. So I'll show you that once I've done it. And then you want to go ahead and chain off of your project, you know, a couple of inches so that you have a tail. And then you'll just clip it here. So this is something that you can see a little bit. You can see like where I flipped it and did this. So I use this method for clothing because it's inside the seams and you're not gonna see it. Like no one's gonna go look inside your clothes and notice it, and it's secured your beginning where your tail started, and then also it secures the end so you don't have any unraveling. I do it that way pretty much all the time. It's easy. It's kind of like the cheater way, the cheater easy way. If you want it to look nice and not stick out like that, like if you were making something and the stitching was going to show, then you can go ahead and take your threads, put them through the eye of a needle, and then thread it back through here until the tails are tucked under a good couple of inches, and then clip that off. That will also secure the tails. I'm gonna say I've heard, because I've never done it. It seems like just too much work. But you can take the threads and you can tie them. Like you undo all of the threads, which sounds tedious to me, and then undo all of them and then tie each and every one of them. So all 4 of them you would like tie, I am so sorry guys, you would tie a knot at the end of every one of the threads. To me, I'm like, I am not going to spend my time sewing or knotting 4 different threads every time I make something. That's too much time for me. So anyway, here's just a little rag, and as you can see, like it cut off the corners and made them rounded. Easy peasy. Everything is, you know, cut off, and I guess that side's probably easier to tell. Everything is cut off nicely. It makes a really nice finished seam for your clothing. And like I said, I have boys, so they're rough. And I used to sew a pair of baby jeans that were meant to grow with them. So they had cam snaps, the button snaps on the waist, and they had like excess fabric at the bottom of them. I used to sew like a patterned fabric cotton on the inside. So you roll the cuffs up, you button the buttons as tight as they can be, and then the pants grow with them. My son wore a pair of them for over a year, and I used my serger to make jeans for my baby, for my little boy, and none of the seams came out. They just held up wonderfully through like a year plus use of, you know, wear on a little boy running around. So I absolutely love my serger. I think it's totally worth it if you're making anything that needs like the finished edge, or if you're making clothing and you want it to have kind of that like real finished polished look. I think the serger is a great option, and I know you can find them on Amazon. Sometimes they have them on sale. You know, honestly, I don't remember the price, but I do know that they're less than $200. And then when you find the sales, I want to say they're like around $130 or $40, something like that. So they're really not too bad to go ahead and purchase. So let's see, I'm looking at my notes to see if there's anything that I forgot to tell you guys. I don't think that there is. You do want to make sure that you keep the inside of your machine cleaned, and they don't recommend that you use canned air because that can blow the little fibers and particles into your machine and cause more problems than you want. But there are like little sewing machine attachments, or I'm sorry, oh my goodness, vacuum attachments that like little teeny tiny parts that you can go in there, attach to your regular vacuum, and get everything cleaned out, so that the dust and everything doesn't clog up your machine. The Sergers tend to make a little more mess than your regular sewing machine because you're cutting fabric, so the little hairs kind of fly all over the place and make a mess. And I'll turn you guys, well, let's see. I wanted to show you the markings on here for your seam allowance really fast because, you know, that's helpful to have. So right here are your markings, and I'll just be honest and tell you I don't remember what any of them are. I know that my thread is 1/4 of an inch, and when I'm sewing things, almost always I just line my fabric up like with the edge of the machine right here and cut. But you can measure, you can get like your little ruler out and you can measure from the left needle thread over and just see, you know, what your markings are. I know some people have actually written on here as well. It's your machine, you can, you know, you can write on it, but Natalie's asking what needles you would buy for your sergers. So I use a couple of different ones. It depends on what you're sewing. So for my serger, most of the time I'm using I'm sewing with knits. And so you want a needle that's going to basically push the fibers to the side rather than like break through them. And there are a couple of different brands or types of needles that do that. What I can do is link those in the post for you guys. And brand wise, I don't honestly have a brand that I stick with. There was a sewing machine shop I went to before I moved, and they had a brand that they swore by, and I had nothing but problems with them in my embroidery machine, so I've never gone back to using them. I just get my needles from Joann's, and they work great. So I'll go ahead and link those 2 different types of needles that you want to use for knits. Really, it's not any different than your sewing machine, though, if that's helpful. There's not like special needles that only go in my overlock, my serger, that don't go in my regular sewing machine. They're all, sorry, I feel like you guys are just like staring at the machine talking to nobody. They're the same needles for both the regular machine and the sewing machine, or the serger. So you can interchange them, not a biggie. You just want to make sure that it's the right needle for your fabric rather than the right needle for, you know, the machine. Because that's the same as the sewing machine. And there's more questions, and now I can't see them. Yes, Julie, one of them is a ballpoint. Thank you. Can you tell my mind is going blank right now? Like, you have all these things that you know, and then when you're here, you forget them. So yes, ballpoint is one of them. I can't remember for the life of me the name of the other needles that also do the same thing. They push the little fibers of the fabric to the sides so that you don't, again, so you don't bust those threads and like ruin your project. If you use the wrong ones, you can end up basically like putting a hole in your fabric, which obviously you don't want. So yeah, you just want to make sure it's the correct fabric or needle for your fabric. So if nobody has any other questions, I'm gonna go. I will be back on Wednesday, and I'm gonna go over different fabric types, knit fabric types. That's my thing. I make clothes and I use knit fabric. I have a closet back behind me that it's got too many yards of fabric to count. I've got like probably 12 yards of this fabric that I'm wearing today, so I have a fabric problem. But I'm going to go over what the different knits are, some of like the common ones, and then also show you guys how to use PDF patterns. So there's a lot of really awesome PDF pattern designers, and so I'm going to go over how I print those up, my tricks for getting them taped up to my window, and how to make awesome clothes. Like, this is a shirt that I made. So Greta, I am going to be on at 9 a.m. Pacific time, so that would be noon Eastern. I'm not in the same area that Alicia is in, and I've got 2 little ones downstairs. Thankfully they were behaving today. So I come on at 9 a.m. Pacific. So if you guys can join me on Wednesday at 9 Pacific, I will see you then. Have a wonderful Monday and great start to your week. Bye guys.